Hi guys, Sensei Roger Jones here, taking a little bit of a break from my training to shoot a little bit of a rant video. Trying to find the most tactful way to start this. Recently on some of the martial arts forums, there's been a little bit of an issue of black belts or instructors seeing videos of other martial artists practicing their technique or performing in tournaments, or competing in tournaments as I prefer to say. And sharing very rude opinions on such. These rude opinions could go anywhere from, well, XMA is not a real martial art, or acrobatics or tricking are not real martial arts, or your technique is terrible. Back whenever I was taking lessons, I'm just going to go out and say it, no one cares. No one cares about your opinion. Unless you've worked with these individuals directly, unless you're their instructor, unless you're the one teaching them, or unless you're their parent, we don't care about your opinion. A lot of you guys, a lot of martial artists on the internet are actually very decent people. They understand, well, we're not all the same. We practice different styles. We were taught different ways. Guess what? If you are not one of these individuals, your instructor is not doing the same exact way that his instructor did it. His instructor didn't do it the same exact way his instructor's instructor did it. We all add our own variants to technique. And in terms of the XMA or acrobatics or tricking martial arts argument, it all serves a purpose. Why do we break boards? We break boards to condition our hands and also to get us mentally prepared. A little bit of mental reinforcing, which is exactly the opposite of what a lot of you spectators or scoffers are doing. You guys are tearing these people down. The video that really triggered me this morning was a 12 to 14-year-old kid competing at a tournament doing XMA bow staff form. And he was doing flips, he was spinning the staff around. It was very impressive. It took a lot of work, I guarantee you. It took a lot of work and dedication to learn this. And these old head martial artists, which I have no problem with old head martial artists, it's the old heads that were never taught respect or humility that I have a problem with, or that lost it as soon as they got their black belt, started bashing this kid, even though he did well in this tournament, started bashing him for doing XMA, saying it's not real martial arts. Shaolin Kung Fu, one of the oldest martial arts styles in China, that's still practiced today anyway, features a lot of flips, a lot of jumps, a lot of acrobatic techniques. And guess what? Kung Fu eventually went on to have aspects show up in karate. Karate eventually went on to have aspects show up in Taekwondo. It all ties together, all of it. It just kills me and makes me physically ill whenever an instructor has to bash someone else. I mean, how do you treat your students? Do you do that to your kids? Do you tell them, well, you're not a real martial artist because you can't do this, but if you pay me $79.95, I'll sell you a 4-book series on how to do this? We're supposed to be building each other up. We're supposed to set a higher standard than that of what the normal everyday community sets. And you're reflecting it perfectly if you bash other martial artists. You are setting back martial arts. Well, I've never seen martial artists act like this before until our recent times. You are setting a whole new standard of jerk-like attitudes. And I'm trying to not curse in my videos. It's taking me a lot of mental processing to come up with ways to say this. So jerk-like doesn't really sound good. But you know what I mean. If you're one of these martial artists that gets on there and says, well, your stance is all wrong. This is the only way to do it. Or XMA isn't real martial arts because it's new. Or blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Your martial art was new at one point in time, and your martial art most likely demonstrated something new and unheard of. It proved itself. in most cases. Even though, I'm going to stop right there on that rant. I hate to break it down for you, and I'm sorry that I have to tell you this today because your parents never taught you this as a kid. And if I upset somebody, so be it. I'm good with it. At least I can have a clear conscience in the fact that I live and let live. But you are not the end-all be-all. You are not an expert. I'm not the end-all be-all. I'm not an expert. Your instructor wasn't. Your instructor's instructor wasn't. Gichin Funakoshi wasn't. The founders of all of our martial arts were not the end-all be-all. They did perfect their technique to some degree for themselves. But everybody's different. If you've never met these people before, or if they're not paying you for lessons, your opinion does not matter. And I'm sorry that you're just now learning this after a long, presumably long life. I'm sorry that you're just now learning this. But whenever it comes to my training or someone else's, unless I ask specifically for your opinion, it don't matter. And it should. Opinions are just like butts. Nobody wants to hear them, and they all stink. Sorry, that's the truth. So check your humility. When we get our black belts, we have one of two options. We can stay humble and continue to learn, or we can gain the ego of an 18-wheeler truck. And unfortunately, while most of us like to try to stay humble and continue to learn, some of us get that ego of an 18-wheeler truck. So, I mean, you're just setting a bad example. You're setting a bad example to students on how they should act. You're setting a bad example to the community of how martial artists are. You're setting a bad example for everybody. And to be quite honest, if you're one of these people that gets on someone else's stuff, says, well, you need to go relearn that, or you aren't a real martial artist, then you physically make me ill. Martial arts is much more than physical. It's spiritual and mental as well. If you cannot show the humility that should have come through years of training, that should have come from your instructor, then you don't deserve the black belt you have. You absolutely make me sick. And I'm sorry for saying that. I don't like putting down what someone's learned. But if you can't display it, if you can't display that you are an actual good human being that has learned some type of value from martial arts, all you've learned is fighting. And anybody can be a fighter. It takes a real person to be a martial artist. And as I said just a second ago, martial arts isn't just throwing kicks or punches. It's learning how to be a decent human being. So, if I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. You know what? No, I'm not. I'm actually glad that I did. Because if I hurt your feelings, then this video applies to you. If this video does not apply to you, thank you for watching. But just until next time, keep your attitudes in check, keep your humility in check, and don't be a jerk.